don't show prep. So, so he had no idea.
I just barely make it in.
I'm sure you can tell, but we don't show.
I mean, let's put the cards down on the table here.
Miami Hurricanes, yeah. You know the name already. It's Mercy. Ha ha. It's a 6-ring Kane show. Can't forget the name though. Got Jazz, Blue, Vision, DJ break the game code. Ain't no changing them, ain't no breaking them. Real Portland live from the Hard Rock Stadium. Ball 14 for the orange and green. We see the 6-ring champs. It's more than a dream. This is life on the field. Beyond 100 yards, a hurricane that's never still put a damage to your squad. The 6-ring Kane show. The 6-ring Kane show. The 6 Rings Kane show. You know.
What's wrong with us? Seriously.
What's wrong with us? We're Miami Hurricanes fans.
Welcome to the 6 Rings Kane Show, a show dedicated to Miami Hurricane sports, featuring the legendary Larry Bluestein, Jazz Santana, Vish, and Danny Gillette. Let's go Canes.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Good evening. What was that face, Fish?
I mean, it's not a great day. Yeah. It happened this weekend. I don't know if you saw it.
Do you need some black coral rum? Ooh. Like what I did there? Y'all better get ready for that.
Yes.
Y'all better get ready for that.
Good stuff. It's Florida ingredients.
Yeah. It's distinctly Florida.
Yeah. 3 different flavors.
3 different flavors. White. Black, not black dry. Dry black.
No, dry black.
Dry black and spice.
Spice, yes.
No.
Without sense of the idea what we're talking about, but
no. But it's a shout out to our new sponsor. That if you download the podcast and subscribe on any of your outlets, whether it's Spotify, whether it's
Apple Podcasts,
you name it, make sure you check us out on the podcast. That's where you will get all the information you need on this really delicious rum called Black
Coral, man.
Black Coral rum. Listen.
It looks like you got into the Black Coral rum a little bit.
Listen. We were doing the ads earlier today, and y'all don't even want to know.
No. Let's not. We're live, dude. We're live.
Joy here. We're trying to get kicked off of YouTube. Blue, DJ, what's going on, fellas? How you guys doing?
Just as good as you could get on a Monday.
I hear you, man. After the debauchery this weekend, it's been a tough one. Look, we're gonna promise this to our friends in the chat and to our fans. We're gonna talk a little bit about it, but we won't get too deep into it because look, everybody's been talking about it ad nauseum already. Yeah. We all know what happened this weekend.
It's over.
You can name how many ways we got screwed over and how many ways we played like crap. It's all together caused the complete debauchery of that game. Obviously, we lost George Tech, so it's one of those things that if you really relive it just too much, then you're falling back into the trap of this old Miami mentality. Just look, I knee-jerked on Saturday. I think a lot of people, maybe 95% of UM fans, knee-jerked about the whole thing, about it being the worst blunder in sports history. Look, all that is past us at this point. There's nothing we can do, regardless of what situation we were in then. All we can do is kind of build from that. And this team, I know they're going to be pissed off. And if any of you saw what I posted on Twitter already, I think
so.
UNC's they're in store for a rude awakening. Go ahead, bitch.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with John. I think both things are true. John S in the chat. Also, shout out to Gus. Just coming with the lulls there, but I think this is true. Like, we're gonna hear about this not just forever. Like, they still show that grainy footage of like the Giants fumbling and Herb Edwards running into it, and that is why people look. That's why people learned to kneel the ball. And since then, no one has done anything remote. So it's like 40 years ago. So yeah, we're gonna hear about this like forever.
Agreed.
And so that's a true statement. And I don't necessarily agree that you flush this. I think you own it, and I think that's what Mario did. Like, this is something that happens, right? He took full responsibility without even, in fact. If for those of you that didn't hear Joe Rose interviewing this morning, you should definitely check that out. But Joe Rose was trying to make excuses, and he would cut him out and say, "Nope, you can't rationalize it. I should have nailed it." And just period. There's no explanation for it. There's no logical explanation. There's no illogical explanation. I think several of us, as you said, Jess, a little emotional this weekend, spent time trying to figure out what happened. And you know what? He screwed up. That's what happened. Like, wasn't some master plan here. I think you could actually see that and I think in the immediate post-game press conference, he was trying to explain it. And he's like, we should have recalibrated here after this play. I'm like, no, I mean, once it was under 2 minutes, you just kneel and the game's over. Like, you don't have to. So, and I think after, again, you're coming off the field as the coach, you're going right into the press conference. That just happens. You're trying to think through it yourself. I think after you had time to reflect on it and really go through the game tape and realize, oh, you mean after Chaney got the first down in the previous sequence, I could have just nailed it. I think he realized that was just stupid. My bad. And he owned it. And I think that's how you'll get the respect of the players and everyone in Hecht. And that's what you need to do to move forward. But I think there's a tendency to say, oh, flush it, put it no, own it. It's part of who we are now. To be honest, like forever. But that's when sometimes this is where you get tested and you prove you're strong or you're weak. And to your point, Jazz, I think this team is strong. And I think I think the more I've looked back, I know you said not to keep looking back on it. Like, we're all focused on the decision not to nail it, which is, again, yes, it is of historical idiocy. Let's just be real here. But the sequence of events that happened around that, first of all, the fumble wasn't a fumble. It was clearly down. Like, it's an insanely bad call. Then, for them to go 75 yards in 2 plays and win the game, I mean, sometimes like karma or whatever, Yahweh, whatever is against you. And like, for all of that to happen in a row, sometimes you're just like, you know what? Bleep happens. Because I mean, all of that, like, because what would happen 99 times out of 100 is he hands it off, the guy gets tackled, like, I have no idea why they're running it, game over. This case, it's a bad call to fumble. But even then, 25 seconds, they had to go 75 yards to win the game. Like, you're still probably going to win. And that completion, the dude juggled it and made like a ridiculous catch, which I didn't realize in real time. But actually, like, he didn't catch it clean the first time. He actually caught it when he turned around. It like went up off his hands and he flipped around and caught. It's crazy. The best player on our team and one of the best players in the country blew the coverage on the last. I mean, what are you going to do?
That was a good throw too. I mean, that was a very tough throw, all things considered, and unfortunately,
I mean, it's a clutch play to make. It's a clutch play to make, especially that Georgia Tech team. Let's be honest. Like, we dominated the whole game. Whether our offense was playing terrible or not, we've dominated on both sides of the football. You saw it the whole entire time. The scores by Georgia Tech was poor field position. When TVD made mistakes, which, by the way, we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll definitely get into that. But we'll talk about that. But also some really ridiculous, penalties, right? That put them in a position where they had a short field and they capitalized on a short field. But you got to give your hats off to the defense. They played their hearts out and they played really, really, really well. Okay.
Yeah.
They had a couple mistakes towards the end, but listen, man, that doesn't happen if you take care of business. And at the end of the day, I think that you got to put things into perspective. You got to understand that, like you said, Vish, like, what are you going to do? Like, everything.
I mean, all of that. And yeah, I mean, for David's point, just to be clear, like, his elbow is down, then his shoulder is down, and then the ball doesn't come out. Then the guy rips it. So there's like a distinct action. It wasn't like a situation like maybe it starts moving. Like, he was so obviously down. And, it's one of those things.
A lot of people are going to say, well, Miami fans sound like crybabies when they're talking about the referee screwed us. The referee screwed us. They did. They screwed. I mean,
well, this is the thing, right?
Entire game up.
But especially that last not fumble. I mean, if you look, I've not seen a single person look at that and say that was a fumble. The ACC
still hasn't come out with their with their
So
rooting.
yeah, for those that aren't following,
What is that
Mario said that Miami, we sent formal requests for them to explain how that was a fumble and have not heard back yet, and I don't think we will, because it was not a fumble. But I think on that one, even the people that are like screw Miami, they're not saying that that was a fumble. They're saying you should have kneeled it, which is kind of irrelevant to whether or not that's a fumble.
Right.
So no one's actually looking at them and be like, oh yeah, the ball is moving. Look at this angle where you can no, because he ripped it out after he was lying on the ground. So
That's unbelievable.
But I will say, when Blue and I talked about this a lot last week, Georgia Tech is a schizophrenic team, and they play good for period, like really good football. They dominated Wake Forest. They played Ole Miss tight for 3 quarters. They were killing Louisville for a half. They have good football in them. They haven't put it together for a whole game.
Right.
And when we didn't capitalize in the first half and left them in the game, and we're up 3-0 instead of 14, 17-0. Like Georgia Tech is not terrible in the sense that they aren't capable of putting a good half together. They've done it against multiple good teams this year. And in the second half, we went up 10-0, and there was some penalty aid and stuff, but full credit to them. They fought hard and they kept playing, they kept coming.
The
and
coordinator had a good game plan because
their interim coordinator came in, confused us, and then they tackled really well. Because there were a lot of plays where we were getting 5-6 yards where if one guy misses, it's gone. And they did a really good job of tackling too. And they played a good game. And that's why you got to kill a team when you have a chance to do it. We didn't do that in the first half. And the quickness with which it went from 10-0 to them up. It was touchdown, then interception 2 plays later, then they're in the end zone again. It's like, okay, we're in a battle. And I think the first half is the half you'd like back as much as the end sequence, because just there were opportunities, especially in the run game there, to really put some distance in there, and we weren't able to do it. And again,
Blue.
We talked about this as well. I'll throw it to Blue actually for you. We talked about this. They're an ACC team. They have kids that can play. They're a Power 5 team. You can't screw around in this. And we actually had that discussion, Blue, last week. I'm curious to get your take on this in terms of some of the play calling. Remember, we had some people in the chat saying we're going to hold stuff back. We were like, you can't really do that here. Felt like we kind of screwed around with the play calling in the first half, but I'd like to get your take on that.
Well, first of all, DJ, we're back in the 7-5 game, brother.
I know. I was actually thinking about that the other day, Blue.
7-5 game.
I was thinking about that the other day. Not that I'm rooting for that, but
we thought they'd be 4-1, or we thought they'd be 4-1, but we didn't think they'd lose that game, and that hurts in many ways because it's a conference game, obviously. And Vish, I'm 100% on your side. Georgia Tech has a lot of kids. They played inspired defense. That dude just got a raise and a freaking promotion. Because if it takes you 4 days to put a goddamn defense together, then God bless you. Because they had an answer for a lot of things. Miami probably got 500 yards, 490 or something like that. But still, it was in between the 20s. It wasn't going to threaten. And that's the one thing I kept thinking about is, I've never been a Brett Key fan. Last I remember, George O'Leary was telling him to go get coffee at UCF. Now he's a freaking head coach at Georgia Tech. But I sat in the press box and I kept thinking, they came to play, and Miami just didn't take advantage. And I was really disappointed in Tyler Van Dyke because he looked nothing like a leader. He really didn't. He threw more errant balls and he just didn't look like his leadership. And thank God for Restrepo, because if he didn't catch half of them balls, it could have gone south really quick. So, it's a disappointing loss. And as Alex Dono and I were talking this morning, I lived it Saturday and Sunday. I'm finished with it, because if you hold on to it, you're going to be 5-7, because every damn game you're going to go into thinking it's going to be a vendetta game. And you can't play anywhere near you've played the next 2 weeks, because if you do, you'll be at 4-3. It's not even up for discussion. You'll be at 4-3. You got to put all that behind you. And you know what? All this crap that these people are saying on the internet and all the fans, I don't. What goes on in the locker room and in that program is far from what they're portraying.
Absolutely.
He didn't lose anything. Believe me. He's worked too hard. They
We'll get
believe
into that too. For sure, he didn't lose anything. He didn't.
No, I mean, you know what? When I hear that, and I'm, I mean, I think to myself, people just don't understand the transformation that's been made here in the last year. Really. I mean, you could say, oh, they regress. No, well, so is Wake Forest then. So did Mississippi for 3 quarters. Because Georgia came in there, and Vish is 100% right. I look at their roster. I mean, they've got a guy, the kid Leary.
The kid who scored the touchdown. He's in Alabama.
He was the number 1 player in the state of Florida 3 years ago at Orlando Edgewater and went to Alabama. So It's not like they've got nothing. I mean, the kid who played safety number 1 was the number 2 rated safety in the state of Florida out of Jacksonville Trinity Christian. I knew a lot of those kids. And you know what? You take a look at a guy, their quarterback situation, they played well. But here's what I think that Miami needs to focus in on. And I'm blaming Tyler Van Dyke. I don't care who says anything. I don't care if he threw for 400 yards or whatever he did. His leadership sucked. It really did. He should have gotten them out of all those situations. True senior leadership does that. You look at some of those games the other day. Look at some of those games. There were some terrible games. I mean, there were games, you look at the Missouri game, they should have beaten LSU. I mean, come on. They were in there with them. They had the lead. I mean, you take a look at some of those games, and you watch Alabama and Texas A&M, and A&M obviously has a couple of kids out. They played them very well. So I think this is the deal. I just think that our leaders need to be leaders. They really do. You can't expect a freshman to come in there and be a leader. You just can't. But I thought they played well up front. They played. You look at statistically, and if you looked at the statistics, you go, "Oh, Miami won 35-7." That's what you'd say. But that's why statistics are misleading.
Yep.
But my take from the entire game was, you can't carry this to Chapel Hill with you, and you can't carry this then the following week here against Clemson, because it won't be up for discussion. I watched both of those teams. And Clemson's on the way back playing well. They're doing some good stuff. North Carolina's as good as anybody. They can minimize them all they want, but they're a pretty damn good team, and Miami hasn't done very well against them, in the last decade or so. So put it all behind you. I don't want to hear any more of this stuff. And Alex and I talked about that this morning, like I said. And I says, okay, we heard. Everybody said their piece. He's a bad coach. He made decisions, whatever you want to say. But now it's time to just put that behind you. You're 4-1. You're not a 1-4 team. You're a 4-1 team that could turn things around in the next couple of weeks. Or you could go the other way, like DJ and I say, sometimes, maybe they're not mature enough in a lot of ways. But I mean, to me, I think there's a lot of things that need to be done during this week. And I think that people, everybody wants to be transparent and everybody wants to take ownership. Well, do it. This is the time to do it, because you're going to walk into a place where they'll have 90% of the fans. Right. And then Vish. I mean, it's not going to be a very friendly place, obviously, because they feel now that they've got an opportunity to win this thing.
I want to take this in a different direction with you, DJ, because Blue brought up some really, really great points about, leaving this behind you as a player, right? As a player, as coaches, as fans, right? I mean, you got to leave this behind. You got to move forward. And I know it's cliche to say that, right? And everybody says, well, now let's see how you react after this. Yeah. This is what makes the team, and this is what really, throw all those cliches. I don't care, right? That's all garbage to me. I think that at the end of the day, it's about the performance on the field. You got a guy like TVD who comes off of a terrible performance, right? Probably the worst performance he's had in a Miami Hurricanes uniform. There's deficiencies there on what he's doing. He's we won't get into specifics on it, but there's certain things that he's doing that's allowing the defense to capitalize on some of the ways that he's reading them, per se. Right? Let's just put it that way. That's why he made some errors, some errant throws. He also looked very indecisive on on his looks, on his reads, and he made a lot of mistakes. I know a lot of people don't want to give him that last interception wasn't his fault, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. The fact of the matter is he didn't play a good game at all, not even close to it. Still had an opportunity to win. But I think what's most telling to me, again, as cliche as it sounds, is the reaction from the players that I saw after that game ended, right? You saw right away, you saw Inez Cooper throw his helmet down on the floor, pissed as hell, because he knows they let one slip away. He knows that, there's a lot of contributing factors to why he was pissed off. And you saw Matt Lee as well, right? Crying on the sideline, saying how much he's given to this team. X, the same thing, right? Cam Kitchens is still feeling it now, right? They're all shook. Pimp Down they were all shook. And I think that that's appropriate. That's how you have to feel. In the past, we've seen some of these idiots on the sideline dancing and smiling and messing around while they're getting their ass kicked. You don't see that. You haven't seen that now, right? You're seeing this team, and Blue mentioned it. This team has transformed, and it's going to continue to transform. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to get better. My question to you is, when you see that from a team, does that instill more confidence in you to say, all right, this team can bounce back from this a lot better? Their mental fortitude, right? They're able to band together as a team, be pissed off, and go in and kick UNC's ass.
It does, because to me, I would rather see a player crying on the sideline because he's upset at a loss or a certain play than somebody dancing on the sideline, when they're down by 2 touchdowns. I mean, there is something to be said for that type of emotion, and people can, say what they want. Oh, they're big, tough football players, aren't supposed to act like this, blah, blah, blah. But it means that they want to win. They're invested in the program, and, they take to heart what the results on the field are. I would rather see somebody who, slams his helmet down in frustration because he didn't make a play over just, straight face, no reaction on the sideline. I remember seeing, a couple of my old college games as a team manager, and I liked seeing, players upset and taking the game to heart when things were going well, because that to me meant that they believe in what the team is doing, and also that they want to get better each week. So, I mean, to me, you never like to see players upset, but those reactions definitely make me feel better about our chances this week.
Yeah, look, the reactions to me kind of told me everything I needed to know about this team. I think that this is a different team. Blue, you mentioned it. Vish, we spoke about it a little bit as well. It's taking on the characteristics of, its head coach and the coaching staff as a whole. You hear Shannon Dawson taking full responsibility now. You hear, and I know all of us want to say, who cares about that? It matters. It matters because these are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, unless you're Cam McCormick and you're 38. But
but it matters. It matters, Jazz.
It matters, right?
It matters if something comes out of it. If
Absolutely.
it's just going to be the same old thing as next week, and you're going to be apologizing every week,
right?
But it matters. I mean, if something positive comes out of it. And you know what? Instead of crying, Matt Lee needs to focus in, be that leader. Let's rally that team around. And I understand that it hurts, to lose a game that you were 18-point favorites or whatever they were. But here's the reality of it. And I think it goes back to what Vish and I said last week. They got players. Virginia's got players. North Carolina State's got players. They're Power 5 teams, so anything can happen. Except for Vandy. Every other team in a top conference. And not to interrupt you, but I'm just saying, you were talking about how that you got to use this and ownership and all that, and that's fine, but you can't do this every week. This has got to have been one of those things. You come out against North Carolina, and even if you should lose, you bust your tail. And you go, you know what? We left it all on the field. Might have lost by 7 or whatever, or won by 3. But we came and showed that, what happened last week, was one of those things that happens to a lot of people. Ole Miss always gets into Alabama. I mean, if Georgia ever played anybody, that would happen to them. But although they did beat Kentucky to death, so I will say. But I agree with you, Jazz. It's great, but it's got a benefit down the line. And McCormick is in his 22nd year, not 23rd.
But
I think it's important that, to Jazz's point, that they accepted that responsibility, because otherwise, I know, Blue, you're saying like the locker room's locked in, it's not an issue. If you start going out golden on this and blaming everyone else, it's obviously your fault, then that's how you lose the locker room. So it's in these moments where you're tested. Unfortunately, it's a game that there was no business losing, that they lost. But this is where you get tested. You don't get tested when you're killing everyone. Right? When everything's going good, it's easy to go in front of the team and talk to them. When you made a blunder that cost the team the game and everyone knows it and you accept responsibility for that, it's a learning experience for the coach, a learning experience for the players. And it's something they can either grow out of or get crushed by. And to Jazz's point, I think they're going to grow out of this. Now, Blue's general point of you can't keep losing and then coming back and be like, don't worry, it's my fault. Like, that's something's good. But you're also, that's like a 1 in a million shot. You're never going to lose like that again. Like, that whole thing again. Yeah, we did.
The whole series of events.
They didn't fumble the two ridiculous passes, and they're in the end zone. Like, they didn't even kick the tying field goal. They scored a touchdown. Like, that's insane. That's never going to happen again like that. So, I mean, that's not the issue. I do think there are some, and Blue touched on this a little bit, TBD. I think the thing that frustrated me in the first half was with him playing like that, we were forcing the pass. Like, we should just run a lot more in the first half. Yeah. And I think Georgia Tech dared us, to your point, Blue. You can go 20-20. If you're not scoring, we'd gladly shorten the game anyway. And we just did not have the patience to get 6 or 7 yards of carry and drive down, that we kept wanting to throw it. Even that first drive, recall we took the ball and moved it down to like their 40. That was despite them calling a blocking out of bounds or whatever. We had us wiping out a long run. And then it was second and short. We ran that weird option play. I don't know what the hell that was. And then we called a wide receiver bubble screen on 4th and 3. And it was like, we could have just handed the ball off on any of those plays and gotten the first down, kept moving. I think there was a little bit of, I don't want to accuse them of lack of respect, but I think a little bit of, we can handle this team. Versus, just doing what we would do against, like, if we were playing a Clemson or
Florida State. We're trying to be too cute with certain things.
Yeah, right? I think so at the beginning, and then they found themselves in the game, and then it was on, right? And I think that was probably the opportunity. Yeah, TBD didn't play well, but I was to be honest, Blue touched on it. I was impressed with their defensive coordinator. He kept switching things up. He adjusted at halftime to what he knew we were going to try and do, because the whole first half, I'm watching them with 2 high safeties, 5 in the box, maybe 6. I'm like, we got to run at this. Comes out in the second half, he's creeping in his slot corners, bringing this. There's 8 in the box now, and we're running at it. Their defensive coordinator.
He wanted you to run the ball because he dared you to throw, and if you threw with 8 men and was stacking the box like that, so
he pre-adjusted to what we were going to do in the second half and was on top of that. Their defensive coordinator did a great job.
Did a great job. That's why I said he got a raise.
Yeah, hats off to that.
Let me tell you, Blue. I'm going to agree with Blue on this. A lot of it has to do with how poorly TBD played. There was a lot of players. There was a lot of receivers running wide open that he missed. There was a lot of plays where he could have checked into something or checked out of something, and he made a lot of bad reads. I'll tell you what, just in hearing some of the other shows and some of the other people who know a little bit of football per se more than I do, right, as far as like the play calling, the schemes. Apparently what Georgia Tech was doing a lot of is where they were keying in on what TBD was doing with his eyes. So if he was looking at a certain direction or a certain key, they were moving their safeties that way, which caused so then of course we all already know that TBD has an issue with his making his second and third and fourth reads, right? He kind of locks in a little bit sometimes. That's why Restrepo had 12 catches or 11 catches or whatever he did. So you're talking about a guy that's already has that issue. And he had all day, his offensive line played great.
Great time.
You got to make your reads, man. You got to go through your progressions and make the right throw. You had a guy wide open in the end zone on one of the goal line plays that you ran, and you still threw it into triple coverage. Those are issues with TBD. That's not an issue with the play calling, right? So it's
That's a fresh. Those are what freshmen do, or sophomores. They'll throw in the coverage like that, and just because they're frustrated. Not if you're a guy with all these starts and all this talent. You can't do that. Throw the damn thing away if there's nobody open. I mean, that's where to not to switch gears, but that's where Tua has progressed. If he doesn't have anything, he's not forcing it in, even with all that speed. He'll throw it down and that's what Tyler needs to do. He needs to, as you say, go through your progressions. There's nothing there, then toss it out of bounds. Don't give that other team an opportunity.
Or use your legs a little bit. He can use his legs a little bit.
But that's another point. How come Miami keeps running tackle to tackle? And because that's where Georgia Tech's strength was. Yeah. If you look at it, the front three, and then there are two linebackers, as Vish was saying, they were creeping 8 up, but the 3 interior linemen were pretty big, and then those 2 linebackers kept filling in. So I'm thinking to myself, I know that A.J. Allen, from what I heard, was in the doghouse, but he started playing. And then Henry Parrish, and they have the speed to go a little bit outside the tackle.
They have the guys.
But they didn't do it. And then what you do by that way is you set them up for fakes and get them out of the backfield, not on a full wheel route, but maybe, as you said, a bubble screen or just to get them in space. And that's why he kept throwing to Restrepo. Because, Restrepo runs those good patterns. He'll shake off, a corner or whoever he's got, a safety, and he'll get open for that, split second, but he's open. Yeah. And that's why he kept going to him, because I was being up in the press box, and they have the replays, and you look at the replays, and I go, oh, man, he gets, there wasn't a guy 2.5, 3 yards away, which you never see in a major college game. But that's why he kept going to Restrepo. He was open. And, yeah, Restrepo's not going to get you 60, 70 yards. But they have to find a way to balance, especially this week. Because, as Vish alluded to, if Georgia Tech picked it up, you don't think North Carolina is going to pick up a lot of that and stack the box on them? And, come. You want to run tackle to tackle? Run tackle to tackle. We're just as big and strong as anybody in the country when it comes to our front seven. So Miami's got to be a little bit more innovative. And let me tell you something. Other than the last, 2 plays, Miami's defense played really well.
They did.
I thought Guidry really dialed up a really nice game. He did a lot of good things. They got, they put pressure on the quarterback a little bit. They stopped the running game. They never really gave up a huge, chunks of yards. And they had 4 plays where they went 3 and out, or 5 plays. And that's what I'm saying. It's sort of like a pitcher pitching a 2-hitter and striking out 11, but your offense really didn't help you. So it's a correlation and maybe, an off base type of comparison, but that's what it is. You get a good pitching performance, and then all of a sudden your bats go silent. And that's what happened. Miami really they never struck gold except that long one, and that was to Restrepo, right? The longer one. Who was that? Am I right?
Kobe Young.
Oh, Kobe Young.
Restrepo
right,
too.
Yeah.
He hit Restrepo in the 3rd quarter.
Right down the middle of the team. Yeah.
And that was because that was a good adjustment by Dawson on those, because that was adjusting to Georgia Tech now playing in the box. Because in the first half, the over the top wasn't there. There's 2 safeties were deep, and they were taking
No. You're right. And I think that the defensive coordinator of Georgia Tech matched Dawson the whole game. He really did. He countered stuff. He made adjustments.
Yeah,
and like Vish said, he saw what Miami was going to bring to the table, and he goes, okay, I'll put this guy here and put that guy there. So, yeah, I'm not going to dwell on a game that is in the books. Okay. We kind of dissected it to the point where we know what happened. We know what went wrong, but the one thing, we can't beat ourselves up going into Chapel Hill.
The one thing I will say though, as bad as that game was, we got the ball with 6 minutes left, up 3, and ran the entire clock down, took all 3 of their timeouts. They had all 3 timeouts left and iced the game before that insanity happened. That's what good teams do. You're playing like crap. You haven't really been able to run the ball that well.
Yeah.
But, hey, we do those extra reps in the offseason because of this toughest part of the game, we're going to be stronger. And we actually were. Yeah. And that's where the tragedy of the way that game ended, like those last that end sequence wiped all that out. That was a really impressive drive. You got a team knowing you're going to try to run the ball, sitting in the box, and you just keep running over them for first down after first down after first down till they ran out of time. And then obviously the end sequence happened, and no one's ever going to remember that. But that was a 6-minute drive with Georgia Tech using all their timeouts to run the clock out and win the game. That's what good teams do. It's like they don't give you the ball back.
Yeah. No,
and we did that, and then obviously it went the way it went. But those are good signs that you're able to do that. The other team knows you're gonna. We definitely could not have done that last year. Like, there's no way you're grinding out the game at the end like that. And so it's unfortunate end of the way to. But that was really we talked about. You know, they're investing in the offseason program. They're getting stronger. They're getting mentally tougher. It showed in that moment. Again, no one's ever going to remember anything from that game except for one thing. But, I mean, that drive, you're thinking Georgia Tech's going to get 1 or 2 more possessions after this. And they didn't, other than the fluke at the end. And so, that's the type of stuff that'll carry you well beyond this game. That, hey, if we get the ball back, maybe not 6 minutes, but, you get it back with 2.5 left. The other team has a couple of timeouts. Yeah, we can run this clock out. We're going to run for some first downs and the game's over. That's how you win games. Obviously, we didn't win that game, but that's exactly how you win games, and that's how Blue mentioned Georgia earlier. That's how you avoid upsets. You don't give the team the ball back, and so I think there was a lot, despite the way the game ended. I think there was some encouraging stuff there.
All right. Let's move along. Before we get to it, let's talk about our sponsor, PrizePicks.com. Here, let's check them out. Check out Prize Picks. Check out Prize Picks is what I wanted to say. Go to PrizePicks.com. You're going to log in. When you log in, you're going to enter the code 5, F-I-V-E, and they will match your initial deposit up to $100. Make sure you check them out. It's real easy. You're going to choose anywhere between 2 to 5 players. Choose the over-under on their individual stats, their individual categories. That's how you win some money. You can mix and match players from different leagues, from different teams. You can go from the NFL to the NBA, to hockey, Formula One, college football, you name it. They got it on there. Make sure you check them out on prizepicks.com. Log in, put the code 5, F-I-V-E. They will match your initial deposit up to $100. Check them out. It's prizepicks.com. I wanted to kind of, you mentioned it a little bit, Blue, earlier in the show about how this team and reacts to this loss, and how they whether or not a lot of people are saying, well, Mario's lost their locker room, he's lost this, the coaching staff is screwed, yada yada yada. Obviously it's a bunch of crap, right? This is a different program, but not only from a team perspective, but you're talking about from a recruiting perspective. A lot of people also thought, oh God, this is going to ruin the whole entire recruiting class that he has in 2024. Hey, by the way, guys, they just signed one of the top wide receivers in the country on a flip from Georgia. All right?
Right after the game.
Right after the game. So I think we all need to take a step back and realize that this is one game that they did lose, right? But the consensus from what I hear from people that have been saying this is that a lot of the recruits that were at the game, maybe not all of them were mentioning it, but a lot of recruits at the game were actually more upset that Miami got robbed. Not that Miami played bad or that the wide receivers didn't, because obviously you've got Nikar, you've got JJ, Jeremiah Smith in the stands.
Blunt, a bunch of guys.
You got a whole bunch, but let's say you got some of these really good wide receivers out there, and obviously the play calling wasn't great. The wide receivers didn't do much except for X and Kobe on that one really nice play. But you'd think that oh wow, well the offense didn't. No, the Nikar commits right after, and that just tells you again the type of relationship and the way that these coaches and this team is put together. Like, this is a different team. You're gonna have times where you have mistakes and you do this type of stuff.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
To be quite honest with you, the recruiting apparently actually didn't take a hit. If anything, it helped, and they were a lot of them were talking about how they thought
they'll
we
be
got
fine.
robbed.
One game is not going to dictate something like that, especially when you're making your commitment not only for the football program,
absolutely,
but for a city that you could work out 365, for an area that's a lot of fun, you got the beaches, you got everything to go with it in the off season. Nah, I just think it goes deeper. You know that, Jazz, and
that's what I wanted to hear from you before we talk a little bit about UNC before we close out. Is recruiting. This is a long game, man. This is a marathon, of course, but
no doubt.
That now that I think they moved up to like number 11 in the country in recruiting for 2024. This is a really, really, really good recruiting class, and they aren't done. And they're not done at probably at the wide receiver position either. So let's talk. Your take on what you can see moving forward now. I mean, believe it or not, December is less than 2 months away from
right there.
That's crazy.
From early signing. This is crazy, right? So you're going to see some of these guys sign on the dotted line. Majority of them are going to, and you're still going to see some other guys that are going to commit between now and then. I mean, it's still an opportunity for Miami to really go out there and have a great recruiting class. How do you feel that, this team, obviously I don't think this loss affects them in any way, but are you hearing from any recruits, and obviously we don't have to mention any names, as far as how they feel about this program as a whole?
Yeah, no, I have a lot, and I talk to them all the time, and they're totally sold on what this team's got. I mean, they're not blind by the fact that they know what type of talent's on the team. They know lack of depth, is huge. And, and I talked to quite a few of them and their parents and the coaches. And it's funny, I walked in to the game with Xavier's mom and dad, and I just want to say that he graduates in December and he's going for his master's. So I just want to let everybody know that, here's a guy that gets it done both places. And believe it or not, that's a huge recruiting tool because he's well-liked, well-respected by everybody. And when they see, by the way, Zay's got the second best GPA on the team, and he's going to graduate, and he probably is going to come back next year. But I think that what you want to watch for in the offseason, in addition to what they bring in a recruiting class, is what they bring in through the portal. And I told you, they're going, I'm not going to mention any names, but I will down the line, but I know they're going after a certain quarterback pretty hard. And if they get that quarterback, then there's a spot filled right there that, could come in and help still bring along the other guys that are young and the incoming guys that are young. And then they're working on like at least 10, 12 portal kids. And that really, as you ask Florida State and a couple of other programs, that turns your fortunes around pretty damn quick. I talked to, the Florida State has a kid named Bethune from Miami Central, started out at UCF. His dad was a principal. I talked to him the other night at the Norland Booker T game. And he said, you'd be surprised. You bring in 5-6 kids like they did with Johnny Wilson and some of those guys, and it turns your fortunes around. And I think that's what Miami's what they did this year on the offensive line. And brought in a couple of key figures on the defensive side of the ball. So in addition to what they're going to get, in this class, and you alluded to it, Jazz, it's a really good class. Anything is in the top 15 and you're, like Vish said before, the Power 5 kids Georgia Tech's got. They may not be upper echelon, but they're good enough to have attracted, more than Georgia Tech offers. And a lot of guys that go to Georgia Tech, like Miami, you just can't go there. I mean, you got to have some aptitude to go there, and you have to get it done in the classroom, believe it or not. And there's a lot goes into this recruiting that a lot of people don't even understand. And I listen to guys like, I like Gio and those guys like that, but they just talk out of their butts sometimes about, there's nobody's going to go here. What? You can't be in tune to recruiting and say things like that. You really can't. You should be honest with yourself and know this recruiting thing comes down to like a 3-4 year deal because everyone gets to know each other and there's relationships made. And then the kids you bring in through the portal, here's a perfect example. How many kids did Miami bring in this year that had ties to one of the coaches? A lot. So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't come down to just, that kid's in a portal, I've never seen him play. Or, hey.
No, these guys have seen them play, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Coach Nicholson coached him, in the past, so he knows all about him. Like the kid, what's his name? They brought in the linebacker from Louisville.
Yeah, KJ Cloyd.
Yeah, Cloyd. I mean, so that to me, if you really sit back and understand the whole process of recruiting, it's not just an X's and O's deal. There's a lot more to it. Relationship. You want these kids to come on campus and not, oh, yeah, there's a kid that can run or this. He goes, no, he's a great kid. He hangs out with everybody, and they go out every Friday night, and the linemen, the quarterback and the running backs pay for the linemen steaks and stuff. Things like that. That's what those kids do during the summer. Yep. So it's got to be a total deal. You just can't have a kid come in and he's just a great football player. He's got to be a fit. And that's why I always say, you bring in 15, 16 new kids, they're all 15, 16 individual kids. You have to shape them into, your team play. That's why you look at a program like Alabama or a program like Georgia. They get those kids from the beginning and they drum. And that's why every year you say, wow, Georgia's just, got 20 kids drafted. And then all of a sudden they got 20 more and they got 20 more because they build that foundation. And that's what Miami's trying to do now. Back in the day when we got Leonard Taylor, he was the only one you got. Alabama gets 3 of those kids every year, and Ohio State. So that's what Miami's striving for. And if they could get kids in to buy into the system, and because they're using a lot of younger kids now that they really, if they're at another school, they may not be seeing the field as much. But that's all the whole process. So, I kind of, Vish kind of said it last week that this is a work in progress. This isn't anywhere near a finished product. Right. And it's tough to tell the fan base that's been muted so much over the last, 20-something years, that this is not the type of team that's going to win you a national championship. There's so many more things that have to happen. And people aren't patient. You get off to a 4-0 start, and they're printing up national championship rings. And you can't do that. You just you got to understand that it's all a process. And I'll talk, and there's a lot of people now sitting watching, and they're, come on, yeah, you're full of it. No, I'm not, because I see the process. I've been around the process, and I know what it takes. And certainly Miami's, when I hear, let's fire these guys, fire them. Who are you going to get? Who are you going to get that's going to bring you everything that
that's not even a discussion worth having.
Not even. So I kind of flip through that all the time. But no, I just, I promise. Yeah, Vish is always right.
Apparently having a mental breakdown over here.
He's not a recruiting guru pimp now, so he kind of leaves this up to.
This is Blue's time to shine here in DJs.
Yeah.
Blue.
Yeah, DJ, you got to start, chiming in on those things, because I know that you love that aspect of the game, and you watch that as much as anybody. I mean, you understand what a roster is. Speak on that, because I think that that Miami's got to be a deeper team.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They definitely have to be a deeper team, and, you have to look at it from a fan perspective, and I know this is easier said than done, but when you try to sell kids to a program, you not only have to sell them for 2023, you have to sell them for all 4 years. And, as a coach, you kind of have to communicate clearly what your plan is for the program and have a detailed plan of what you want to do. And, by all accounts, Mario has been able to wow with his recruiting visits and his plans and his outlines and things like that. Because you guys know as well as I do that, recruits can smell BS from a mile away.
Sure.
And so a solid plan needs to be in place in order for recruits to buy in and for recruits to, kind of, take that next step with the program, which is why, something like Saturday's loss, yes, it hurt, but recruits are looking at long term, and they definitely see what the program is trying to build here, and they're not freaking out over one game because they see that there's a strong plan in place and not just a coaching staff that is going in, 75 different directions.
Very well said, DJ. Makes total sense. Yeah, absolutely.
So I do want to ask a recruiting-ish question. So this comment was in the chat from Jonathan. This team goes 7-5 will hurt the recruiting. I know I can't remember if this is in the show or backstage right before we started. I know Blue and DJ, you guys had the 7-5 prediction before the year, and 4-1 at this point. So you're tracking. Wasn't the one that we thought it like
No.
is? Do you think that this? Let's first of all, do you still think 7-5 is in the cards? I guess question one, but two, what do you think that would do to recruiting?
Go ahead, DJ. You could answer it.
I do think 7-5 is still in the cards. Let me just say, I am not, jumping up and down for a 7-5 result. I want it to be a lot better than that. It may hurt recruiting slightly, but again, I think it's about not what this team did just this year, but how can these incoming freshmen and these recruits, they want to visualize, how they'll be able to fit into a system either on the offensive or defensive side of the football. So I think as long as there's a solid foundation built and a solid plan in place to, where recruits can see, oh, I can make an impact here and things like that, I don't think it will hurt recruiting too much as far as the wins and losses are concerned. Because quite frankly, I still think, kids realize that Miami is still building, and quite frankly, maybe some fans should as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And the whole thing, Vish, is when you take a look at this schedule, and when we did this at the beginning of the year, you have 4 games remaining that are going to be challenges. I mean, Clemson's going to be a challenge right after North Carolina. FSU's going to be a total bitch because they just wanted you talk about recruiting, they want to kind of get, that upper hand in Louisville. Just like I said at the beginning of the year, and everyone laughed at me. And I said, watch out. Louisville has got a good basis. They got a guy who knows the program.
Louisville's for real, man.
Yeah, they are for real. So, and I said that, and I know there's a lot of people go, oh, no, not at home. I mean, we'll be, well, you lost to Georgia Tech at home, so all the bets are off. So to me, NC State's going to be a really, really big game. We know Boston College, I mean, if you never know what happens there. But, I mean, I think Miami should handle business, especially if they're going for a better bowl. Because to me, NC State is the game that either takes you to that 6-6 or 7-5. And that's why I'm saying, you got to kind of be leery about those games. But it's a given that North Carolina, Clemson, Louisville, and FSU are going to be major obstacles.
Yeah, you're going to have to come with your A game.
Huge.
There's not a team that can play their B game and win those games.
I agree.
They got to execute and they got to perform to win those games. Can they win them? Absolutely. They're winnable games. You've seen there's chinks in everybody's armor. Okay. And if you can expose that and you can play your A game, you're going to win the game. But if you come out flat and you look like crap, you're going to lose those games. And
I agree.
You're going to get your butt kicked. So,
I think
if you look back here, DJ, I just want to say, if you look back after the A&M game, I think we all agreed and we all said, wow, Tyler showed a lot of, like leadership, and you could tell, but he didn't have that this game. Right. He had it against A&M because remember when A&M Miami got down, it would have been, and even he said last year when we got down like that, we would have quit. And Yep. I want to know what the difference was the other night. How come we couldn't have finished? But everybody's entitled to a bad game, but not all 22 guys at the same time.
I agree. Real quick, before we get out of here, we got 5 minutes left. Just give me a key to Miami winning on Saturday against UNC. We'll start off with you, DJ.
Get pressure on Drake May, but that's easier said than done. But if you can make him, rush his throws by even just a fraction of a second, then that's better than nothing at all. Because if you give him time, he'll tear you up all day.
Blue, what do you got? What is something that's going to be a deciding factor in Miami pulling this one off?
Well, from an offensive standpoint, North Carolina's loaded up front, and the kid Omari in Hampton runs the ball extremely well. And then last week, British Brooks also had an opportunity. But on the defensive side, even though they got the kid Miles Murphy and then what's that kid Power? The kid Power, up front, I think their linebackers are a little bit thin, and that's where I think because I think they start 2 freshmen and a redshirt freshman, a regular freshman, because they lost heavily, and their secondary's okay, but not great. I mean, I think the kid Marcus Allen might be their best defensive back. He's a good cover corner. The kid Chapman as well. So Miami's just I think they got to stop the run. I mean, obviously, we know the obvious is stop Drake May, but they got to stop Omari and Hampton and British Brooks from, gouging you with some big plays. You have to at least be able to control one of the options, and you much rather control Drake May, but I think their running game, I watched them last week, and they were gashing him on the ground.
Vish, what do you got?
Yeah, I think it's going to be patient with our own running game. UNC's weaknesses are on the defense. Like Blue said, they're stacked offensively. Their weaknesses are on the defensive side of the ball. We got to protect our defense too. That's running the football. And no one's really, other than A&M, when they stack the box and let's just throw touchdowns at every play, which if UNC wants to do that, we'll obviously take it. But, I expect them to be a little bit more balanced defensively and not just leave their corners on island for our receivers to run past. So with that being the case, I think we're going to have to be patient with 4 or 5 yards per carry, grind out drives, and not make those mistakes at the end of the drive so you get points off of it, even if it's field goals. I think that'll shorten the game and protect our defense some. And I think if we do that, we'll win.
I'm going to say something different because while I would tend to lean towards that running game, I'm going to say this. Now North Carolina and all the other teams have a little bit of video, a little bit of tape on TVD and his tendencies and how he looks people off and this, that, and the other, and his keys and his hot routes, yada, 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 and the way that he plays. TVD's going to have to step up this game. He's going to have an A&M type of game. He's going to have to bring back some of that leadership, all right? He's going to have one of those, wow, TVD is elite again type games.
Yeah.
Even the North Carolina game from last year actually was one of his better games.
He
did a great job last year.
He did a great job last year, right?
Yep.
So he's going to have one of those type of games. I think that the offensive line, is as good as just about anybody out there right now. I think we have a hell of an offensive line, so they're going to give him an opportunity to be successful. He's going to have to make the right reads. He's going to have to make the right throws. He's going to have to make some really good throws. Probably some really big pressure situations. I don't think this is going to be a blowout by any means, but I think that if TVD comes out fiery and he's on point, I think Miami could definitely win this one and play really. And he's got to play really well, and I think Miami could definitely boom North Carolina at that aspect. You guys are good? Vish, I thought you were going to say something there.
Oh, I'm looking up the spread. It is North Carolina -3.5.
Yeah, -3. It's
wow.
3.
That's not bad at all.
No. Not
I thought it'd be like in the
home
6
game at night, prime time. Yeah, Miami's got to come out and they got it.
So I'll tell you why that is. It's because despite losing, we obviously lost last week. I'll own this.
Did we fall out of the rankings, by the way?
No, we're 25th. But I'll just flat out say this. I think we're a good football team.
I agree.
I don't think you've been able to say that for like 4 or 5 years. And we shouldn't have lost on Saturday. But to me, it was a fluke that we lost. But if you look at the total of the game, it's a lot of reasons why the score margin wasn't wide. It wasn't like, we got away with that. Georgia Tech's really carrying this game, and it was the other way around. I think we're good, and that's why I think the spread's 3.5. Because gamblers watch everything.
Right.
and North Carolina needed overtime to beat App State at home early this year. I think you look on the sum total of the season. I frankly think we're a better team than them. I have not lost confidence, and I really like the way our coaches have handled everything, and I'm feeling good going into this game.
We'll see what happens, man. It's going to be fun. Prime time, 7:30 p.m. on ABC.
I did bring out the Mario Cristobal collection tonight. I haven't had that on this year.
Look at Spiffy today, Blue.
Yeah.
So shout out to everybody in the chat. We appreciate you guys coming on. Yeah. Checking us out. And we'll have some Vish and myself and some of the other guys on the crew. We'll have some stuff for you this week. Hopefully, some additional.
Content. Make sure you're subscribed.
To the podcast, right?
Yeah. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast feed. It's if you search for Six Rings Canes podcast, it's on like everything: Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can directly subscribe to the podcast on Red Circle as well. Because we are gonna. Actually, I did already on Sunday rolled out some post game thoughts on on Georgia Tech. It's not on the YouTube channel. It's just on the podcast feed. You're gonna see a lot more of that coming up. Quick hitters, maybe some game breakdowns, that kind of stuff. So make sure you subscribe to that feed. Otherwise, you're gonna miss all of that content.
That's right. We appreciate it again. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at 6 Rings Canes and subscribe to the YouTube.
Oh wait, I mean, I'm not gonna deny you a moment of glory, but Fat Bear Week.
Fat
Your
Bear
boy Chunk. Your boy Chunk.
32
Chunk whipped up on my girl 901.
Wow.
It's been a rough couple of days for me between the Canes game, the Cowboys doing whatever the hell that was last night, and then my Fat Bear got eliminated today. But yeah, the championship is tomorrow.
Who's in it?
32
it's Chunk against Grazer. So Melissa had picked Grazer. So it's a Jazz versus Melissa battle.
Grazer's a big boy, a big girl.
I mean, that picture of Grazer, I feel like is not fair because it's just she looks fat. I mean, I'll show it.
It looks a little bit like they're cheap. It looks a little.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a.
It looks a little ACC refish to me. Referee.
Yeah, but there's your two Fat Bears.
I think that the water, Grazer's the one on the right. I think that the water is kind of playing a factor in how fat she looks. But look at Chunk, man. That's a bad mamma jamma right there.
I will say Grazer has been dominating heavily every matchup, including Holly, who was the favorite coming in.
That was mine, right? Holly?
Yeah. It wasn't even close today.
I think we both had Holly.
The vote was not close. It was a domination. So
look at Chunk. Well, Chunk
Chunk is the fattest bear, so it's going to be a good matchup for the finals tomorrow. Get out there, fatbearweek.org. Go vote for your Fat Bear.
Go check it out. What is it? Fatbearweek.org, right?
Yep.
Check them out.
And I guess just real quick, Lee put a last-second chat. So we did ask, if you didn't see this, Mario did say we asked the ACC for – obviously there were some bad calls throughout, some like roughing the passers that were fabricated. They took a touchdown away on a holding call no one can seem to find. There was a lot of stuff, but specifically he did ask for clarification on how exactly it's a fumble when your elbow's down for like 3 seconds and then someone comes in and rips the ball out. I don't know, to DJ's point, I don't know that we're going to get an answer, but they did ask for an explanation, at least for the last one.
We'll see. We'll see you guys later this week. Make sure you check us out on the podcast, subscribe, and
Buckets Thursday night too.
Nice. Okay.
I think we're gonna have a good guest on that show as well. So definitely check that out. Season's only a few weeks away for that, so we're gonna There's also gonna be some podcast only content on that because we cover men's and women's, and that's 4 games a week. We're just not gonna do 4 like full shows at night. So we'll do some quick hitters, some recaps and stuff on the podcast only. So definitely
good stuff. And DJ holding his fan hostage week 47.
I am. It's getting
cold up here.
Oh
my God! I landed last night at the airport. I'm like, what happened? It was in the 80s on Friday when I left here, and I got back to DC.
Got in like the 30s that night.
Yeah, freezing. I was wearing a t-shirt. I got off the plane. Everyone's in coats. I'm like, oh, I made a mistake.
Yep, you did. Definitely did.
We got 90s planned here this week.
I gotta go back. I need that.
Take it with you.
No, you don't. I need a 50s in my life.
You don't understand what you're saying, man.
I do.
You don't understand because you think you want that, but see, right now it's what, October 9th? When it's March and you're still putting on 3 layers to go outside, like I've been doing this for 6 months, kill me. Like that's where it gets you. It's like all of you people.
I don't want that.
Yeah, all of you people, living in warm places, like, it'd be so cool to feel it once in a while.
I'm good with the 50s. I don't need.
I want somewhere it's 75 in the day and 58 at night, and I'll be
there. You go. Amen. I'll take that all day. So you gotta move to California, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, either that or Tahiti, one or the other.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
We get rain until May, and then from May to like August is like summer, and then we get like a little bit of a second summer in late September, early October, and then it's back to the crappy weather again.
Yeah, I don't want where you're getting outside and you're skating all over the damn sidewalk.
Yeah, I don't want that either.
I don't want
that.
Don't
come up here. You don't want to go up.
I don't want that.
I mean, DJ gets a lot more of that, but it's just like it's continuous.
Right.
So it's like once you just realize, it's not going to be hot again until like April now.
That's
like
crazy.
So
we go down to 44 in the morning. It gets to 70 by 10 o'clock.
Yeah, no. We might not see 70s again for months.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys later.
The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The Six Rings Kane Show. You know,